Hello, my name is Juan Pablo Gonzalez. I'm a medical librarian here at the Lewis Stokes Health Sciences Library of Howard University. This is going to be a short tutorial on the critical appraisal process, a very short overview to get you started with supporting evidence-based medicine decision making. I will be showing you a live demonstration of this process, but before we do that, let's begin by reviewing the expanded definition of evidence-based medicine by highlighting its seminal definition, which appeared in a 1996 editorial called Evidence-Based Medicine, What It Is and What It Isn't. You can locate this article for your own reference by entering the number circled in red into the PubMed search engine. It's always important to reflect on this definition because this is the driving factor behind the work of building an evidence-based case. In the expanded definition, the authors define evidence-based medicine as the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patients. The practice of evidence-based medicine means integrating individual clinical expertise with the best available external clinical evidence from systematic research. By individual clinical expertise, we mean the proficiency and judgment that individual clinicians acquire through clinical experience and clinical practice. By best available external evidence, we mean clinically relevant research, often from the basic sciences of medicine, but especially patient-centered clinical research into the accuracy and precision of diagnostic tests, including the clinical examination, the power of prognostic markers, and the efficacy and safety of therapeutic, rehabilitative, and preventive regimens. So, the central premise of the definition of evidence-based medicine is embodied by the term best. But how do we determine what is best? The determination of what is best is not a subjective or arbitrary process. Rather, it is determined by a framework that helps you to cross-examine research findings by establishing thresholds in rigor and validity that must be met in order for a literature to be designated as the best evidence. According to the Joanna Briggs Institute, the purpose of this appraisal process is to assess the methodological quality of a study and to determine the extent to which a study has addressed the possibility of bias in its design, conduct, and analysis. Conducting critical appraisal of literature is the cornerstone of providing transparency and reproducibility of your decision-making process. This will be important because you will often face questions from patients and other clinicians about your decisions, and you must be ready with a fully transparent process so that your work can pass muster. The critical appraisal process will require a lot of investigative work. It is a process that is undertaken by the most methodical clinical professionals who are dedicated to quality work. There are many critical appraisal tools, all of which are designed to provide substantiation to your decision-making process and to ensure the best in patient care. But we recommend using the framework developed by the Joanna Briggs Institute. You can access the critical appraisal tools by going to www.joannabriggs.org. Scroll to the bottom of the page and select Critical Appraisal Tools. This will bring you to a page with different options for different study types. Since randomized clinical trials are the gold standard, I will illustrate some of the functionality of critical appraisal tools on that basis. The format of the critical appraisal tools begins with explanatory information, a checklist of questions that your study must pass in order to be determined to be best evidence, and additional information about each of the questions. For my example literature, I'm going to be using a research paper called The Effect of Resistance Training on Headache Symptoms in Adults. Secondary analysis of an RCT. To help you get a feel for cross-examining research papers, I'm going to lead you through question 1. Question 1 is asking, was true randomization used for assignment of participants to treatment groups? If we head to the methods section of my example research paper, we can see that 573 office workers were randomly allocated at the cluster level. And here it says randomization was performed on a cluster level. And that clustering was put into 5 groups. So in answering question 1, clustering is a form of randomization, and more specifically, it is a study design which randomizes groups of participants to each arm of a study rather than individuals. This is done when it would be difficult to give a new treatment to an individual within a community or social group without it affecting the outcome in the standard care arm of the study. But in order to fully answer question 1 and to adequately judge the merits of this study, we must look a little bit further. If you're not familiar with the intricacies of clustered randomization, you will need to investigate this topic through Science Direct. Science Direct can be accessed through the library's homepage at www.hsl.howard.edu. You're going to scroll down to the search box and click A to Z databases. A good place to start evaluating study designs is with a book chapter called Evaluating Treatment Efficacy. So you're just going to put that into the search. We're going to go down to the side over here and click Book Chapters. And there it is right there, Chapter 61, Evaluating Treatment Efficacy. You will need to read through this information because you will be looking to understand when clustered randomization is most useful and when it is not, and how that applies to the work and conclusions that were drawn in your study. I've already evaluated this information, and what I was able to determine was that it was noted by Science Direct that the small number of randomized groups introduces a greater potential for threats to internal validity, because randomizing a small number of groups is less likely to control for potential bias. This is noted as a major disadvantage of group randomized trials. We are going to need to ascertain if clustered randomization has been appropriately applied in this study, and are the conclusions drawn on that basis valid. We can begin this process by heading to Google. We're going to take into account the major drawbacks of clustered randomization that was cited by Science Direct. So that means we're going to be looking to detect problems with sampling. As we saw before, my example study had 573 people divided into 3 groups of 191 each. A simple search such as clustered randomization and sample size should yield us sufficient results to begin cross-examining further. So from the results, I can see that there is one from the BMJ, so that's the one that I'm going to use. Again, I've already evaluated this information, but you would be thoroughly examining this paper for insights when you do this on your own. I know I've selected the right paper because if I scroll down just a little bit further in the reading, I can see here that the authors have stated that this paper will examine the trade-offs that are made when determining the number of clusters and cluster sizes. So based on that, I know that I'm going to get a good understanding of whether or not the study in question, my study of 573 people divided into 3 groups of 191 each, is effectively constructed. As you have seen, the critical appraisal process is an exacting process. It's designed to ensure that your patients receive the best care and that your decision making has been rooted in a systematic, reproducible, and transparent approach to examining the research literature. While this tutorial was designed to give you just a taste of what this process is like, if you need additional assistance, please contact me at the Health Sciences Library. You see my email address right there. Just shoot me an email about any questions that you have regarding that or any research issues.